Okay, so I guess we'll start this meeting. Welcome, everybody. And, you know, technology is not my friend, Anthony. There we go. Thank you.
Got you covered.
Yeah.
Donna, I made you a co-host again.
Okie dokie.
All right, so I didn't have an opportunity to go through the manifest. Has anybody else?
I was just looking at it. I didn't see really anything.
Yeah,
No.
I mean, nothing out of the ordinary that I saw.
Yeah, I'm fine.
If you guys are good with it, I'm good with it. So if somebody want to make a motion to approve the manifest.
You got to actually formally open the meeting.
Oh, I thought I did. I didn't?
Oh.
Okay, welcome to the Select Board's meeting, May 4th. Is it May 4th already? Wow.
Yep.
2020. And I'd say we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, but there's no flag. So we'll forego that, and hopefully we won't be doing this Zoom thing much longer. We could actually have a meeting in person and stand for the flag then. So that being said, we roll right into the manifest.
All right.
I'll make a motion to approve the manifests.
Do we have a second?
Tony seconds.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye, Ben Bartlett.
Is this for both accounts payable and payroll?
Yes.
Okay. I, Donna Danis.
Hi, Tony Dumas.
Hi, Tyler Eaton.
Hi, John Moore.
All right. And due to my computer issues, I did not have an opportunity to review the minutes either. Has anybody else had an opportunity?
I did it when they came out.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as corrected for 4/20/20.
A motion, do we have a second?
Tony
I'll second
seconds.
it.
Okay, second by Donna.
Doesn't matter.
All in favor? Aye, Ben Bartlett.
I, Donna Danis.
Hi, Tony Dumas.
Hi, John Moore.
Okay, minutes have been approved as amended. Reports from assigned boards and committees. Budget, not in season right now. Planning board?
Planning board has not met yet.
Okay. CIP,
Nope. No
Nope.
meeting.
300?
The last meeting they had, I missed a call, but Steve's here. He can give us an update. Can you, Steve?
Steve?
You're on mute, Steve.
One of the concerns we have is we would like to know if we're going to be actually having the summer concert series, which we would sell merchandise at and provide food. Any of you have any insights into that?
Still waiting to hear what the group size limitations are going to be. We might push the schedule back a little bit, but we're kind of treading water. We're optimistic, but
Okay, so we are proceeding. We've got some things that we've been doing, and eventually we're coming out with a booklet, and that's where we're at right now.
Okay.
Hey, Steve.
And how about Marston?
Nothing new to report.
Okay. Donna, can you refresh our memory? Are we actually having folks, it's okay for folks to go out there and walk around, right?
We haven't said one way or the other.
No, I was just curious with, the grass starting to come up, whether.
Yeah, we had said that, like, we prefer people not walk on the fields and stuff like that, right? But there's that long dirt road that goes out there.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I haven't seen anybody out there, but I have seen quite a few cars out there over the weekend, so I wasn't sure. where we left it at. Okay.
Yeah, it's best for people to stay off of the fields.
Okay. All right. So nothing on Marston then. Town administrator report.
Everybody's safe and healthy as far as we know. Just about all the news lately is coming out of the governor's office. Yeah, you probably heard Friday his sort of roadmap for reopening. I think that puts us at the beginning of June, perhaps looking to start taking steps towards at least opening this building back up to the public. Don't anticipate any changes in anything else. We're still waiting on the library. We don't know what we're going to do there yet, what they're going to do. We're thinking of our first step might be open by appointment only here in this building. We're looking at ways to organize that. Most importantly for the town clerk, where we have sometimes larger groups of people all waiting, and maybe for some of the other functions, but we're trying to figure out how to do that. We got a couple more weeks before we really have to know what we're doing, but that is our guess at what things will look like about a month from now. Governor's office also hinted there would be some more guidance coming on summer camps and day camps. There was a call about that today, and we're expecting a little bit more, probably end of next week, I think is what they were saying. Guidance on the camps and perhaps even things like the beach. We're 4 weeks from Memorial Day, so those questions are coming up. The first kind of go or no go decision for summer camp will be right around June 1st. So we hope to have some more specific guidance and perhaps a little backing from our insurance company if we do have an opportunity to open. One of the scenarios that they're working on is doing half the camp at the school as we had and half here at the community center to, if we've got group size restrictions. But we, again, just kind of waiting. No real big changes at Pawtuckaway. We were still turning lots of people away on Round Pond Road this weekend. The weather was nice. We didn't have any rescue calls for the first time in a while, which is nice. And we're waiting to hear on the campground there. The governor said on Friday that campgrounds will be open to in-state residents only, which was some comfort in that we know a lot of the traffic at Pawtuckaway is out-of-staters. So if they go with a half capacity in-state only campground, that's better than it could be. It's not ideal, but it's something. I expect we'll continue to see high traffic there on the weekends for the foreseeable future. It was quiet this weekend, knock on wood. And then today, the governor announced a number of things, what's called the CARES Act. I don't remember the acronym, but how some of the federal money flowing through the state is supposed to benefit cities and towns. The order today was some $30–40 million being divided up amongst the cities and towns in the state. It turns into about $120,000 for Nottingham in expense reimbursements for costs related to pandemic response. So, the hard costs or personnel costs that we've taken on in addition to the normal business that relate directly to pandemic response. It sounds like a big number, but quite honestly, we don't have huge numbers of direct costs related to this. We've got some. I'd be surprised if we could get to 120,000, even being creative. unfortunately, the money is not allowed to be used for revenue offsets, which, as we've talked about, is really as big a concern for us as incremental costs. So the new money today, nice big number, but it can't be used for the same things that the FEMA money is being used for, and it can't be used to offset the revenues. So I don't know how helpful it's going to be. They spit that out and then got some guidance out late this afternoon that pretty much mimics that. We'll be looking for things we can attribute to it, but I'd be surprised if we get to 120,000 in costs. We're not looking for things to spend money on, so that was nice, but
Chris, can the argument be made that the increased number of rescues in the park were directly attributed to the pandemic because of the need for people to get out in safe places, and that, baseline from last year and the year before, it was a significantly increase in a number?
Sure, yeah, but that would be great, but we actually don't incur a lot of direct costs in that. It's you have a little bit of payroll and you have some points in the call system for our call firefighter stipend.
Yeah.
You got some gas to get over there. It's not a huge number. As you know, our objection to babysitting the park is not about dollar cost on any given day. It's other things. So we've picked up a few, obviously the material supplies, the technological stuff that we've done that had some cost to it. Perhaps some of that the personnel costs with babysitting the park. Those are all possibilities. We could even, we'll work on the recycling side. We're paying more to get rid of things than we used to. So, we'll chase all of those, but it's not going to be huge money.
Yeah.
And a lot of those things are also eligible for FEMA reimbursement from a different path. So I don't want to complain about money from the governor, but my initial response today was kind of meh. On the bright side, they also set aside a bunch of money for stipends for first responders, police, full-time police, firefighters, EMTs, that's all in town world, are going to get a $300 a week added stipend for a couple of months. I think it's 2 months. Part-timers, $150 a week. They haven't really told us where that money's coming from or how to get it. But that's what they chose to spend some of that money on. That's just a pass through for us. It doesn't change up. It's great for our people, but it doesn't change anything for us on the budget side. You've seen the expense report through the first third of the year. As you can see there, we didn't have anything out of the ordinary. We didn't break the bank in responding to the pandemic. All of our people are essential and working more or less their regular schedules. We do have revenue shortfalls that we're going to be chasing. Looks like motor vehicle revenues down about 25,000 from where we were a year ago. That's most of that probably happened in April. That's about $1 million line. So over a full year, maybe that's a $50,000 or $75,000 revenue hit. So not catastrophic. The town clerk's still busy. People are still buying cars. So we're not seeing a full shutdown on that revenue line as we might have feared. The first quarter's highway grant check arrived this week, so the state didn't sit on that. I was kind of surprised to see that. Still no word from the legislature on rooms and meals tax, the revenue sharing that they approved last year, or the remainder of this year's. highway grant. Those are the big state funds that are in the hands of the legislature, and we won't know on those for a while. So it's shaping up like we expected a couple of weeks ago. Expenses are what they are. Revenues are down, and the decisions for you will be what do you want to do with expenses for the rest of this year, and what do you want to do with fund balance when it comes time to set the tax rate. You do have some room to work with there, so we'll have to figure that out before we go into a town meeting, whenever that is. And the next financial concern is cash flow. That's really on your agenda for next week. But we're also waiting to hear from the NHMA, and perhaps the governor's office and the New Hampshire Bond Bank are working through what it's going to take to allow towns to borrow money in anticipation of taxes if necessary. We haven't had to do that for a long time here. But depending on how our collections are after the first issue tax bill, we may be in a position where we need to borrow to maintain our cash flow. We'll get into the details of that at your next meeting, but that is on our radar as well. I think that is it for news.
Chris, anything new from the moderator?
I talked with her today. They are waiting for more guidance as well. There's a lot of talk about there's federal money coming to help elections, and the process of appropriating or divvying that up is underway. Bonnie's paying attention to that. It's starting to look like a heavy reliance on absentee ballots for the September primary and the November general election. She's advocating for resources to be directed toward that, which makes some sense. I think we'll probably see a need for some more office type help to deal with that crush of absentee ballots, as well as keeping a polling place clean and functioning. But as far as we know, the elections are going on as scheduled. Town meeting obviously scheduled for late June, and we're probably not going to know until at least early June if that's really viable, given the executive order on assemblies.
Strange times we're living in.
Pardon?
That's the strange times we're living in right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else want to add anything or questions?
I don't have any.
No. Okay. Action items review from last meeting?
I don't think there were any.
No.
They'd be in the minutes.
I had Pawtuckaway maps and trail markers, and Mr. Dumas will develop a cheat sheet for Zoom meetings.
Yeah, the trail maps and that stuff was just, just a kind of discussion about that would be a cool thing. And if we're having any conversations with the park at some point, it would be a good talking point.
Okay. The cheat sheet's almost done. Chris, have there been meetings that haven't been on Zoom in the past week or so that I missed?
Have not been on Zoom?
Yeah.
No, we haven't had any in-person meetings.
Right. I just mean other boards and committees. Like Joanna, she jockeyed Zoom for a meeting last week.
ZBA, yep.
And that seemed to go off well.
Yeah, she didn't have any trouble with that. No, there's been no other Zoom traffic that I'm aware of. The library trustees used a voice call in their last meeting, and I don't think anyone else has met.
Okay.
Everything else has been postponed.
Okay.
Okay.
Speaking of Zoom, actually, I will throw it in right now. Can you all see the? Yeah, let me sign Not out of the meeting, just out of the web page. Can you see the portal? On my screen.
Still seeing the agenda.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Let me share. There. How's that? Can you see that?
Yes.
Just for the benefit of everybody at home. This is the meeting portal that we can use going forward rather than emailing links and phone numbers and whatnot. Well, we'll still need to get the phone numbers out there for people that don't have computers, but the address here, nottingham-nh.zoom.us, that's our official town public meeting portal for Zoom, from Zoom. So there it is. Tell your friends. Go back to the agenda. There we go.
Okay, here we go. So, guess we'll move right into assessing. Did everybody hear me? Did I unmute?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Well, do we have that thing we were just reading about the combined lots over Tuckaway Shore?
Yeah, which one? There's two documents.
I'll just open up as the general conversation.
Did you guys have a chance to review all of that information?
I was right before I got here, so.
Ben,
Say that again.
did you review all of the information that Kelly sent us about the abatement request?
I was in the midst of doing that when my computer crashed, and I didn't get through the whole thing. But I have a basic understanding of what's going on.
So set the stage here, Chris. Are you looking tonight for a decision from the board or questions or whatever the board wants?
Yeah, the intent to cut items on your agenda are pretty straightforward. I guess I would ask for your approval of those and then signature when you come through. These are the first abatements you've handled since you took over the responsibilities of the Board of Assessors. I think ideally, as we deal with these going forward, we find out what your questions and concerns are before a meeting, and then are able to, present things to you at the meeting or have Jonathan with you to discuss if necessary. Some of them are administrative and straightforward and don't need a whole lot of thought and discussion. Others are a little bit more challenging. These may be a little deeper than some. So I'd be happy to have a decision, but if you don't feel comfortable making a decision, or if you need specific questions answered or whatever, we're happy to round those up for you. I'm gonna try not to be the assessing expert for you, because I'm not. So if we know you need more ahead of time, we can deliver it a lot better than responding on the fly in your Monday night meetings.
John, you have a lot of experience with assessing, don't you?
Yeah, again, I was trying to read through the whole thing, where we went from unmerged lots to merged lots in this particular case. But then when I was getting down to the bottom, the value difference they were mentioning, which I didn't get to finish reading. So I'm kind of familiar with what they're talking about, just not, I haven't finished reading everything because I didn't look at it till basically right before the meeting started.
All right. So John, would it be better just to wait till next meeting to talk more about this? Everybody have an opportunity to review it, or?
Yeah, because I didn't, it's as close, I didn't get to fully go through all Jonathan's recommendations. Because what he says is a good guideline of what you're
right.
What you're going to be looking at.
Okay.
So I didn't get to finish everything I was reading on it.
All right. So then, safe to assume we should just table it then for now, till next meeting.
Can
Yeah,
I
I
make, oh, sorry, go ahead,
I'll
John.
go for it.
Can I make a suggestion that everyone go through it in detail, and that if you have questions, to send them to Chris by next Monday, so that Chris has, a week to prepare for the next meeting.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I read them both in full, and I'm inclined to go along with the recommendation. My only question was, is the unmerger action separate from the abatement request?
Yes, in this case, the unmerger has already been done.
Oh, okay. So this is purely the question of whether or not to grant the abatement.
Correct.
Okay.
So we'll table this till next meeting.
Okay.
What do you want to see next?
Well, we're gonna roll right into general business now, right?
Do you want to look over those intent to cut documents?
Oh, yes.
We gotta deal with those as well.
Any thoughts on it, or?
Looks pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah.
Mm,
Chris, do we need to vote on this?
Yeah, where you're going to sign them later, but you do need to vote on it. Approval.
Okay, so.
All right, I'll make a motion that the select board approve the intent to cut request for, I believe that's 85 Guile Road
I'll second it.
and Stevens Hill Road.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye, Ben Bartlett.
Hi, Donna Danis.
Aye, Tony Dumas.
Hi, Tyler Eaton.
Hi, John Moore.
Okay. Now we go. Was there anything else before we go into general business? Oh, okay.
Abatement requests. Okay, so we want to see that Route 4 document.
Did everybody have a chance to go through this?
I did. So Chris, how, you mentioned that it sort of changes the risk assessment for us, in a good way or a bad way?
Well, not good.
That's how I took it.
It's you have less flexibility now than you used to. The biggest change is probably that it makes it really challenging for you to retain ownership of the property without risk of some kind of challenge from the prior owner. What the Polanski case from 2 weeks ago was about a property in Bedford that the town did not move quickly to sell, and the dispute arose from that. And what the court said was that the court said the town followed the law, but the law was flawed. And by laying out how the proceeds could be returned to the owner, but not requiring that the town sell the property, the law was unconstitutional. So what that means for us is that while we can explore it and think through it, retaining ownership is riskier than it used to be. It doesn't mean that it's not possible, and it doesn't mean that it's not worth exploring, but it just it makes it more challenging to retain ownership if you wanted to for some reason. And that would include retaining ownership and then leasing the land, which is one mechanism that we've considered in the past. So if you want to pursue that, we're going to have to do some more work and take on a little bit more risk. It may not be impossible, but that's really the first and most pressing impact of Polonsky Bedford.
Okay, did they, out of that court case, they didn't have anything of what would be considered a reasonable time frame or anything from the time at which the rights of 3 years from that point on to however long they own it? I mean, how long did Bedford own that property? I don't recall reading that in there.
It was, I don't know, 4 years and something.
4 years, but that didn't include the 3-year mark, did it?
Yeah,
Wait, they-
three
It did?
plus one. Yeah, three
Okay.
plus one. And it isn't necessarily the length as much as it is that the town in law was not required to sell.
Right.
They ended up doing so, but the constitutional finding was around the fact that the legislature did not require it. And so what the risk becomes in our case is that the prior owner makes a claim about its value. If we were to hold on to it, they could say it's worth a ton of money and that we were only owed a half a ton of money in taxes. So the battle.
So they could force us to sell it.
Well, they could make it so that you would just choose to sell.
Yeah.
Or they could try and get into a battle about what it's worth.
Okay. So what kind of impact would this case have on the rest of some of these other properties that the town has?
That's kind of, I haven't really thought about that. I think it puts a lot of things up in the air,
Yeah.
but in only a few cases do we have recent takings where there's a known owner and enough value to matter. Where you think about the cost of fighting about it versus the cost of what somebody could regain. I think the risks are pretty low that it spills over for us into our other properties. You're still entitled to your back taxes, you as the town.
Yeah.
The taxes, the interest, the penalties, and all those things. Those numbers get pretty big and they grow over time, regardless of when you take it. So the risk is pretty small with a lot of properties because they just aren't worth that much relative to what's owed on them. Does that make sense?
Clear as mud.
Yeah, I was afraid of that.
So,
It's good to have a for starters, the fight over who gets the money from the sale of a property is all about what was owed is a pretty straightforward number. It's the taxes, it's the interest, it's the penalties, it's all those things.
And we're not entitled to anything above and beyond what's owed. Anything above that goes back to the original property owner, right?
That's right. So the fight is always, and if you sell it in a clean legal process, it becomes very clear what it's worth. If you sell it on the open market, you've got a very hard number of what you're owed, and you've got a very clear number of what the market value is. If you don't sell it, or if you don't sell it on the open market, then you can end up arguing about what it was worth.
Okay.
And that's where these cases come from. And that's, and even in the former USA Springs case, we're owed $1.5 million. That's a pretty hard number. We can take that number into court and we'll win on that number easy. We can fight that. I don't think anybody's going to pay $1.5 million for that property. So we probably don't have a huge risk. But in this case in particular, it seems to find its way into court. So that's the risk assessment that you have to make. Other properties, the values aren't that big, the differences aren't that big. It's just not worth that fight.
So I want to ask a question, and then, Mr. Chair, I would like to suggest that we let Charlene Anderson, who's online, pose a question, given that she's been involved in this so much over the past several years. So my question is just kind of the confirmation, Chris, that you and I talked about in terms of, one of the biggest concern for people in town would be the fact that if we sell it, on the open market, we don't have any control. We wouldn't want to exert control over what happens with the property, right? And so there would be fear that somebody else would want to come in and do something that we don't want, like a water bottling plant, right? But since this all started happening in town, our zoning laws now are different and in place. The protections from something like that happening are in place now because of the zoning laws, correct?
Yeah, the legal and regulatory landscape is a lot different than it was during the early days of USA Springs, yes.
Okay. Because I think that would be a big concern. People would just want that kind of reassurance.
Yeah, to go way back, and this is before my time and your time, the original sin of USA Springs was the zoning board granting a variance for that use.
Yeah.
That had to happen before that project got off the ground. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but back then I don't think the zoning board had any variance not to grant it. That doesn't matter. It's all over with.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
We say that now. We don't know. We don't care. Yeah.
So Ben, do you want to let Charlene chime in?
Absolutely. Yep. Charlie?
What, where is she in the list of attendees?
It's Camigo.
Oh, yeah.
She actually has two questions up there.
Yeah, for this question, my question is in 2018 at town meeting, the people voted to allow the select board to enter into a lease agreement for a solar array or related use of that property. So I guess my question is, that was prior to this legal case. So is there some kind of grandfathering's not the right word, but since that was the wish of the people, would that have any influence on what the select board could do with the property if it wanted to enter into a lease agreement as it was before this case?
I think it would allow the select board to do it from its, it's got a responsibility to town meeting to follow the law and follow town meeting's guidance, and it needs town meeting's permission to do things. It would meet that test. I don't think it would give us any cover in a court, for example, where we have no contract, we have no binding anything. There's no other party involved. It was just if we can do this town meeting, is it okay with you if we do it? If we'd entered into some kind of agreement prior, perhaps, but I don't think it provides any additional cover on the constitutional question. I can certainly ask smarter minds than me, but you can ask town meeting to do anything, but it doesn't require that you do anything, and we have no contract that binds us to do anything.
May I ask a follow-up question?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So I can't read completely the letter that you've shown on the screen, but could the town put conservation easement on the property prior to putting it on the market?
It could, but it would take on some additional risk. That the risk would be that the prior owner could charge that the town had reduced the value of the property and then reduced his potential profit. or recovery.
But the provision of the law that only gives him, the previous owner, 3 years to buy it back to protect his rights, that part of the law was not overturned, correct? So we should be free and clear from any risk from that person, I would think.
Only if you and the prior owner agree on the value of the property. There could be something out of Polonsky that says if you hold on to it indefinitely, that you owe the prior owner what it was worth. Well, at least in credit towards the tax bill, not necessarily in cash. But
Right. But again, he owes far more than the property's actually worth. I would think that would nullify any potential standing he would have to act against the town.
that would be a factor in your risk assessment, but it wouldn't nullify his standing. That's something you could evaluate that, and that's a fair assessment, that the likelihood of anything going wrong or us being sued or losing a suit are all pretty small because of that difference between the value and the tax bill. He still has standing. He still has the right. There are still other parties from the bankruptcy floating around, the mortgage holder, whatnot. So you could make that risk assessment, and that's one of the things I was looking for you to do, is to say, which of these risk assessments do you really want to explore? But it doesn't nullify their standing, so to speak.
It's like everything we've been through, so everything we've gone through and all that means nothing. I mean, what we're gonna do, hand the property back over to the guy?
No. There's no risk that you'd have to hand it back over to him unless he walked in the door with $1.5 million.
We don't see that happen.
No. If he could do that, he would have done it $700,000 ago.
If we put it, I got a question. If we put it on the market with a realtor, who says the guy can't come back and buy it for $500,000?
Nothing. Nobody.
And basically, he just saved himself $1 million.
Yes.
Except for the fact that he can't go back to putting a water plant in there.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, when you continue reading on this, I mean, they give you suggestions of, without putting covenants or doing this, and just actually, listing it for sale, bid, whatever, realtor is the safest action for the town to get rid of this property. So the question is, are we looking to put covenants on this for what we are limiting the future buyer to be able to do on this?
My thought on that would be, we don't know how the political climate will change in the years or decades ahead. If in the event that our water protection law is ever challenged and fails in court, if we have a covenant directly on that property, given its geologically it is suitable for a water extraction plant, unlike any other location in town. If we put a covenant on that property to restrict that use, then we are insulated from any potential overturning of our water protection law in the future. That's just my thought on that.
But
that leaves, sorry.
Go ahead.
That leaves it open to the previous owner, if we don't get enough money, to challenge us. By having a covenant on there, he can say, well, this devalued my property.
Well, it's not his property anymore.
Well,
it's ours.
It is if he's entitled. It is if it's his.
Entitled for a profit or whatever.
Right. Exactly. He could say we're impacting the profit on it.
Chances of him getting a profit, right?
True, but he still owes far more than it's worth. So the amount of money we would have to make on the property in order for him to claim that he's entitled to something, we would have to be able to sell it for more than what he owes, which isn't likely to happen.
No, it's not even appraised at that amount.
Right.
So, and it's going to take years for it to reach that dollar amount on which it's owed in back taxes.
Hey, Chris, what percentage of the 1.5 is taxes and what percentage is interest?
It's probably a third is principal, and the rest is interest and penalties. Ballpark.
Because
Not much.
isn't part of it that they are not responsible? I might have misread that they're responsible for the taxes, but not the interest and penalties.
No, they're still responsible for the
They're
interest.
still responsible for those. Okay.
That's safe.
Okay.
We've got no challenge to that part of the law that I'm aware of.
When I look at the sentence there where, the fastest, most simple for returning property to the tax roll is the auction or a sealed bid. We could get buried in there too. We could, basically give the property away if we agree to that.
Yes, you do. I mean, you could set a minimum, but you do run the risk of getting less than you might.
We're not looking to make a decision on this property tonight, obviously.
No.
No,
Now,
just
what I
discussing.
really need to know from you in order to keep things moving is, do you want to explore those risk reward scenarios around different priorities, like a water restriction, or if there's something else that's important to you? We can then go back to the attorneys and say, okay, this is what we want to achieve. How do we do that? And what is the risk?
Well, I think, and I'm not sure the rest of the board will agree on this, but feel free to chime in. But I think, we should explore all options in regards to this property. I mean, we're only going to have one opportunity to get this right to maximize the benefit to the town.
Yeah, and I still think, we ought to look into the feasibility of, the solar farm option.
Yes.
I've always had my heart set on that because that was a practical use for that land that didn't rob the environment.
And it certainly didn't impact the water, that's for sure.
Right. That's our commercial zone. We can't attract business not having any amenities to offer, like, water and sewer and so on. So, I mean, that use of the property is ideal. And we could even argue that, the revenue streams that would bring to the town aren't a deprivation to the previous owner. It's simply a mechanism to make the town whole again, given what we've lost out on this property for the past, 15 plus years.
Chris, how would the lease work though? If we're leasing it and they're making, regular payments on that, do we at some point in the distant future reach that point where we have exceeded those costs and we are starting to profit from it?
Yeah, that's the hard part of establishing its present value. I don't know the answer.
Okay.
The use of the property is going to factor in heavily because its value as a water bottling facility is going to be far different than its use as a solar farm, which will be different than its use as a tree farm or an asphalt plant, right? So, no matter what we do with the property, it's going to have a different value based on what's done with it.
Yeah, it's the value at the time that you sell it or at the time that you hold it, not the value of what it becomes.
And the rest of the board members, I'm not sure what your thought is on this, but I mean, we want to try and keep the property intact. I mean, there's 3 parcels there, right?
Yes, there are 3 there.
So I don't think does everybody agree that it wouldn't be beneficial to sell them off section by section? It'd be more marketable as an entire lot, all 3 combined, whether it's we sell it or if it's through a lease through the solar farm or what have you.
Chris, has there been any thoughts on that?
Yeah, doing things with it other than selling it, encumbering it, leasing it, carving it up, moving the lot lines around, those are all things that can prompt those questions about what have you done to the value. So we can figure them out and we can estimate those things. But that is the risk that we're talking about. And that's the risk we're talking about. And so if we want to explore some of those things, it would be helpful to narrow that down, because you can get into an infinite number of possibilities and risk scenarios, and we'll spend more on lawyers than we will save on anything else. So it would be helpful to narrow it down, and you don't have to do this today, but what are the things what are your priorities really? And then we can dive into the what ifs a little better. I'm really not prepared to dive into any of those what ifs right now. And some of it we should do in non-public.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I certainly want to explore the viability of proceeding with a solar development, that generated a lot of interest in town, a lot of interest in the board.
Yeah, but did we get the interest from the companies that wanted to buy into the solar?
Oh, they wanted a 2 or 3 year period to study something. So somebody wants to move now.
Yeah, we didn't solicit; they approached us.
Mm.
So.
Yeah, but they could walk away after 2 years, whatever that period was, right?
Yeah.
They could walk away.
Yeah, they were just waiting out the clock, just like we were. So.
Well, there's nothing to say we can't. There's nothing to say we can't have more than one company just come up with a plan, and we choose, the best one if that's the route we want to go. Right? I mean, we can have more than one solar company if that's truly where we're going to go. Look at this. As we done before, we solicited. They had a couple of others come before us with different ideas.
Yeah.
I
would feel better.
You certainly can do that, but that is one of those. That is just doing that is a risk.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's fine. That's totally up to you. We can measure those things, but anything short of just selling it and letting the new owner dictate what happens there is where we start taking on those risks. And I'm not saying that to try and dissuade you. I just want to make sure everybody's clear on.
Well, I think it's worth more discussion, definitely. I mean, this is a sizable lot. So, like I said before, I'd like to see us, we're only going to have one opportunity to do this right. And I'd like to see that, that happens. Whether it's leasing the property or setting it up for sale, auction, sale bid, whatever the case may be, try to maximize the benefit out of it. So
Right now, I think I'm probably feeling more risk averse than you guys are. If I had to make the decision right now, I think I'm leaning towards just putting it on the market and trusting that our zoning laws are going to make sure that there's, that we don't get an undesirable business there.
I'll agree with you on that, Donna.
Yeah. Ben, again, if it's okay, Charlene has a couple.
Sure.
And I know it's out of order, but just because Charlene has had so much experience.
Absolutely. I welcome whatever comments that she has on this topic. You there, Charlene?
Yeah, thanks. So again, Charlene Anderson. So a couple of things. I would be cautious about thinking that our zoning laws would protect us from any large groundwater extraction. So I would say that. And I would also,
Certainly, why is that? Why is that?
because you can ask for variance for that. And I don't know that our language is strong enough in the zoning. I would seek some advice on that one.
Okay.
And I have a question. Is the onus on the former owner to prove that the property is actually devalued?
Yes.
Okay, so keep that in mind. That piece of property has a significant amount of wetlands on it. So it's not like it's all totally buildable. And I think that I think one of the things that you need to consider is the buildings that are on that have been vacant for 16 plus years. So the value of those buildings have significantly decreased as well. It almost seems that it may be worth getting an appraisal on the piece of property if you're really concerned about risk and what might happen with it. So I think those are a couple of the things that I think. So I think if you get an appraisal on it and you look at the amount of wetlands in it, the value of putting basically all of those wetlands into some kind of easement with the land adjacent to a lot of that wetland already in a conservation easement, that would probably be pretty easy to do. I wouldn't think that that's necessarily going to add to devaluing of the property, because if the value of the property is the property itself and not what was put on it, I mean, that's another thing to find out in the case. The property is valued at what the property is valued, not at what the possible intent of the use of the property is. Is that correct?
Yes.
So the how great is the risk, really, when you look at that piece of property and what is truly valued? I don't think there's a lot of risk there.
Risk for what? Putting a covenant on it or putting something in there?
No, risk that the prior owner is going to come back and say that you devalued my property.
Well, if we can't get to 1.5, there's nothing he can say anyways.
Right. So how great is the risk? It's not.
Yeah, and that was kind of my point too, is, if, the amount that we would have to be able to make off of it would have to exceed the amount that he owed in order for him to make any kind of claim.
It sounds like, though, that there's that part of it. There's the cash profit or whatever, but there is the argument that could be made about the devaluing, right?
Yeah.
So it's not so much just about how much money, it's about, did we devalue it?
So,
and he doesn't necessarily have to throw a number at that, right?
If he wants to gain anything by it, he has to prove a value of some sort.
Okay.
Right. And how could he prove a value? It never was operational, nor could he get any funding for it.
Yeah, but it's the property, right? It's the property that counts, not what he intended to do with it.
Right. And what's the value of the property?
Well, I think the idea of getting an appraisal is a good idea.
Yeah.
I kind of think that's like step one.
You had one in 2017, right? Remember that?
Okay.
It's probably changed since then, but nothing's changed on the ground, but the market has changed.
Right. Right.
I mean, I look at it too as if we're looking for somebody to purchase the property, you know, to get closer to that 1.5 million or whatever, them are the ones we have to worry about because they're going to have money and, like Charlene said, I mean, these are people that could say, hey, we want some of that water. I mean, or not even only to extract the water for bottling, but just to, like, we don't have town water, town sewer, all that. If this property was in Epping, they'd probably go for 3 million because they have town water, they have the amenities. We don't. But for someone, you know, to say, oh, we want to put a strip mall or something like that in there, I mean, just not going to work out with septic and you know, artesian well or whatever. It just won't work. So I don't know. It's people with the big bucks. If they want it, they'll come in and then we'll be in a battle again. I bet you.
Chris, help me out for one moment here. You know, Donna and everybody is talking about devaluing. Are we talking about devaluing from the time that they originally purchased the property and what the value was then?
No, between the time that it was tax deeded and at some point in the future where we take an action that devalues.
Okay. Well, I mean, chances are it has gone up, right? That's a reasonable assumption that it's gone up.
Since we took it 3 years ago, that's probably a reasonable assumption. Yes.
So I'm with Donna on this one. You know, if we are serious about it, you know, we should start with a appraisal on it. Just get an updated version of what it could be appraised at, the value and so on. Is everybody else in agreement with that, or?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
What do you think that might run there, Chris?
I don't know. We could approach the person who did it, you know, and see if that would be inexpensive to just, you know, update it to present day.
So you want to just look into that and come next meeting we can make a decision, or?
Yep, sure.
Everybody else good with that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Donna?
Is there anything else? I've heard water protection and solar generation as things that are of interest to you from a policy point, call it a policy point of view or a priority point of view. Is there anything else like that that you would like to incorporate into your discussions or to make a priority? It would be helpful for me to know what those important things are for you. You know, if you don't care about jobs or architecture or, you know, whatever, it would just be helpful if there's anything else that was important to any of you. It would be helpful to know that.
Well, what type of business could be on there? I mean, it's zone commercial, at least part of it is zone commercial. So what are we looking at? Warehousing kind of stuff. We don't have the enemies, right?
Well, the zoning commercial district and the zoning ordinance lays out a number of allowed uses and a number of other uses that can be approved by special exception. I think I haven't read that section in a while, but and I can send it to you. It's pretty straight. There's a pretty straightforward list of what you can do by right, and then there's another list, I think, of you know, things you can do with special permission, whether it's conditional use or special exception. I don't recall, but it's pretty clear. The most typical uses, you can read the zoning ordinance and get a sense of what's allowed by right and what isn't.
Okay.
Can you send us that, Chris, so we're all reading the same thing, please? I mean, one thing, Tony, if you're concerned about, you know, putting something that's specifically calls out, water, right? Are there other, negative situations that we would think we would want to protect against at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Did you have something in mind, Donna?
No, I don't. I'm just asking the question of, is there anything that we may not be anticipating or thinking about?
No rentals. No rental property.
Well, it's a commercial zone. You can't do
Oh, I know.
residential on that anyways.
Well, what about, we have to think about, if someone was to approach us, do we want to have a fuel farm there? I mean, something of that nature. I mean, is that, I'm not advocating it, so please don't take it that way, but I mean, a fuel farm could come, and next thing you know, we've got huge fuel tanks sitting on that property. I mean, with the aqua underneath it. I mean, is that, I don't see that as a viable option. How about the rest of the board? What's your thought?
Sorry, go ahead, John.
No, I was gonna say, I'm in a belief of leaving it to, if the restriction for the groundwater was the only thing, but when we start putting other covenants and other things on there, we're not getting our money back by doing that.
No.
Places with money would be, they tried to get the few, big propane tanks over on Fernald's Lumberyard years ago,
Right.
Yeah, remember that.
and that was.
Yeah, the roof, with John, roof 4 is different.
Oh, it's way different. Hey, I wouldn't mind.
Again, I'm not advocating, I'm just throwing something out there.
Right. Now, what I'm just trying to say is that I don't think we should, if we're going to try to maximize our money and getting it back from what's owed on back taxes, we should at least limit the amount of, if any, besides maybe the water thing, any covenant on that property, and just list it for sale. Just let the guy, whoever buys it, if they want to subdivide it, let them do whatever. Again, just
Yeah, that's the kind of answer I'm looking for. What
clear,
else
get
is
rid of it,
on the
let's
list?
get done and move on to something, again, I don't mean it like that, but I mean, just in general, this property has been on our books for a long time now, so.
And we have a lot of other properties that have been on the books for a long time as well.
Not like this one.
No, you're right, not like this one, but
Oh, and this is
I think we owe it to the tax,
board.
we owe it to the residents to ensure we get this right, to get recoup as much as we can.
And again, that's why I'm saying the more restrictions we put on it, I think we're not going to get the money back. Excuse me.
Chris,
I don't think we're going to get 1.5. I think everybody's in agreement with that.
no,
Is that right? No.
Not currently, no. But Chris, would it be an option to merge those lots? Because as one contiguous lot, it would be more appetizing to a business that might want to come in to and buy the land.
Yeah, I've started asking that question. Probably. Yeah.
And what about the cell tower? What kind of impact that's going to have? That's gonna be
Well,
It's a bonus for somebody to buy the land.
Could we hold on to the cell tower?
Yes, at the risk of devaluing the property. But yes. It's a pretty significant asset on the property right now. You can sell it or you can retain it at some risk.
Well, I would say look into that, the possibility of merging those lots. And you always got to have a plan B. So let's absolutely look at our options for sale, just in case we end up having no options to develop, then we should be prepared to go the other way.
I don't understand. If you don't have any options to develop, you mean developing it ourselves? Or?
Yeah. Like the solar farm thing. if that doesn't pan out, then we should, our plan B should be, if we can't do anything, that has a longer term benefit to the town above and beyond property taxes, and it just makes sense to dispose of it, then we should be fully prepared to take that route as well.
Well, here's another question. How long are we going to, if looking at these other options, is this going to be, we're going to put a time limit on before we make a straight out decision of what to do? Like either sell it or do something? I mean, is this going to be a topic that we're going to keep going for
Nope.
year, hoping
Nope.
the difference going to change? Or is this something we're going to take, some sort of immediate action in resolving?
I would like to have it resolved by the time September rolls around, if that's not too bold for the rest of the board.
Well, that's more, at least that sets up,
Yeah. I mean,
a time frame for what we need to do. Because again, the time if we don't do anything and we push it down the road, even though just to wait to see, again, it's the taxpayers' money that we're holding up.
mhm.
So it sounds like the two things that people are kind of like the two scenarios that people are putting forward are, one is to look at the risk and impact of continuing to go down the route of a solar farm, right?
Yep.
And then the other is to sell it, to put it on the market and sell it. So are those, am I correct?
There was a third one mentioned being protect the water and then sell it, right?
Sure.
Is that one of your preferred explorations?
Yeah.
And if it was up to me right now, I'd put the only covenant would be that you can't extract large amounts of groundwater and then sell it right up. That's what I would do. But
Chris,
just throwing out my opinion.
Sorry, I cut you off, Don.
well, no, just to that point, I think, to me, what's important is to look at the relevant zoning language, right? To determine if we really need to put any kind of a condition on it.
Okay.
I mean, the auction scenario there, Chris, we could set a price we wanted. I mean, can we set a price with putting other things attached to that too? About extracting water and all that, or?
You do that in steps. You would encumber the property somehow with an easement or a covenant or something, and then you would put it on the market as is. You'd auction it as is or whatever. You wouldn't want to leave it on the future owner to do that. You would want, if that's what you want to accomplish, you'd lock it in and then sell it.
All right. Lots to think about here.
Yep.
Are we good with those three for Chris?
I am.
Yep.
I'm good.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Is everybody good to try?
What Chris is going to do this week is look to find a value, though, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna see what it costs to get an updated appraisal.
Okay.
I'm gonna send you the zoning ordinance, and there's state regs and stuff involved too, but maybe we'll keep it simple. And I'll talk with council about the merger, the law, the water protection, and the leasing for solar purposes.
Lorraine, did you get all of those actions?
I was just writing them down. The Board of Selectmen gave Mr. Sterndale direction on what to do. He will get an updated appraisal, updated zoning information, leasing information, and that's where I stop.
And wasn't one of them just about the merging of the lots?
Merging of the lots.
Merging of the lot. Got it?
And just to be picky, Lorraine, because that's the way I am,
Yeah.
instead of just saying leasing information, could you please just put the impact of trying to lease the land,
Impact
of trying to lease the land?
trying to lease. Got it.
Thank you, dear. Ben, there's another question from Charlene on this topic.
Charlene, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, my question is before selling or auctioning off, are you required to hold a public hearing?
In a private, the town meeting vote spoke to that. Let me see. If the board was going to sell it by private sale, it would have to hold a public hearing first.
Yeah.
That's by vote of the town meeting, not the state law. Selling by auction or sealed bid would not require a public hearing. And Charlene, I just sent you what the board is reading if you didn't ask for it, but.
Oh, okay, thanks. I was going to ask you for it anyway, so.
And thank you for chiming in, Charlene. I always appreciate your angle on this stuff.
Yep.
All right. Does this wrap up the discussion on this property?
I think so.
Okay.
Ben, if I could chime in too, I have another question on our earlier conversation before you're ready to adjourn.
You want to just present it now?
So if you want,
Yep. No, go ahead.
going back to this question for Chris, going back to the governor's 125,000 or whatever amount that was, could that be used to purchase drones for the first responders for finding hikers in Pawtuckaway?
Yeah, I bet it could. I mean, it's not, yeah, it might be a bit of a reach, but where it's
Useful
get it
tool.
quickly, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would keep them safer and it would be a useful tool, definitely.
Yeah, it's just hard to draw a straight line from the COVID-19 to the drone, you know, exclusively, but I bet, you know what, there may be other grants available for stuff like that. That's not a terrible idea. I'm gonna chase that.
Yeah.
We actually been looking into that at UNH Police. And so I might have some material to share with you on that, Chris.
Yeah, I'm sure Gunnar will be thrilled.
Yeah, I mean, every year there's always, a mess of kids that get lost in college woods. And, the idea came up, get a drone with an infrared camera so you can lock in on them right away. Same rationale. It would work, for Pawtuckaway just as well.
You just want to use that to find the joints lighting up in college woods. That's what the thermal camera.
Hey, Tony, is College Woods that big?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, it's fairly big.
Huh, I've never been over there. I've got to get over there.
And the trail system through there is like a plate of spaghetti, so it's easy to get lost.
Okay. Just...
Anything else?
Hey, Lorraine, again, I just want to make sure you got the action item for the members of this board to go through the abatement materials.
Yeah, I can read it to you.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure it was
Evan's abatement request, and then I also have the drone purchase to find lost hikers.
Cool, thank you.
Yep.
One last thing too, about the old town office. that we recently got kind of updated. My mother, sorry, I have to ask this. My mother wanted to know if she could go in and clean the property and redo the bathroom, like paint the walls and fix it up.
Absolutely.
And I told her I'd have to ask if it was all right with the board if she went in there too. I think she doesn't want to be around her husband anymore. I think she wants to go out and do something. So, and I said, that's socially isolated, Mom, because you'll be the only person there. But if you guys don't mind, she'd like to do that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Okay.
Tell her
Chris, I'll
thank
look to get a key. I'll be in tomorrow morning to sign. Did anybody sign checks today?
No, we would love to have you do that.
I will be in tomorrow morning. Is there any way I can get a key to that building?
Yes, I will leave it with the checks.
Okay, because I'll be in early.
Okay.
Don't you have a pin?
Oh, he's talking about key to get in the other building.
The old town hall.
Oh, gotcha.
You are talking about the old town hall, right, John?
Yes, correct. The old town hall.
Anything else?
Anything for non-public? Chris,
Sorry, what?
did we have anything for non-public?
No.
No?
Well, before we adjourn and do anything, I'd like to just take a moment and thank our police and fire for their continued, dedication and professionalism during this pandemic. The police have been doing a fabulous job on, monitoring the round pond and situation, and fire departments responding to calls. And then, I also like to thank the town employees, the highway department, and the recycling center as well, to ensure that everything is still running smoothly, even though we're kind of limited. So, hats off to everybody in regards to the much overdue thanks, and can't thank them enough.
Agreed.
We have no appointments, no non-public. So we already done the review action for next meeting.
Yep.
Who would like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn in a second. All in favor? Aye, Ben Bartlett.
Hi, Donna Danis.
Aye, Tony Dumas.
Hi, Tyler Eaton.
Hey, John Moran.
Okay, that wraps it up. And at this point, I'd like to say have a great night. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Take care.
See you guys.
Night, everybody.